Welcome to the Brain Dump, where we study the psychology of success. Join us as we probe the habits, rituals, and routines of top-performing artists, entrepreneurs, authors, athletes, and more to uncover the timeless principles we can all use to take our lives to the next level. Are you ready to plunge the grunge that's been gunking up your mind's eye? Great, then let's get to it.
Guys, welcome to the Brain Dump. I don't know the intro, only Anthony does, so I'm not going to do it. But we have our first guest. We are super honored. We got Golden Locks himself, Matt Aitchison, in the house. What's going on, my brother?
What's up, guys?
Dude, we got Anthony, Matt, Austin here, and we're going to dive into the mindset, the brain, the psychology of success. And so, Anthony, I'll let you, you know what, Matt, you want to do your intro real quick, a little 1 minute, 2 minute?
I just got to say, that was a really good intro, Austin. Like, you rocked it.
Okay.
He you know, for the listeners at home, he was a little nervous coming into it, but I think he did good. So
he was
give him a round of applause.
Bullets.
He was.
He was sweating bullets. I always love coming on podcasts and, just sharing and masterminding and, collectively seeing what some smart, intelligent minds can unlock in terms of conversation. But, I love learning from you guys too in some of these conversations. So I'm looking forward to today. My background kind of got started, at least in the personal development world, when I was like 12. My mom was dragging me to personal development seminars at a really early age. And so I kind of got exposed to a lot of the power of positive thinking. I think the first book I read when I was like 13 was The Secret. And so, once you kind of start to open your mind up to some of the things that really are just not mainstream, or they're more taboo or very cliche, right? But you somewhat, stay open-minded about what those things can, present and bring into your life. And then you actually start to integrate and implement some of those things. And then you start to actualize and realize some of the results of those implementations. It really opens your mind up and you almost kind of become addicted to it. So I've been on kind of this personal development journey. I'm 32. And I've been doing this for a long time now, but really it's made a big difference in my life as a father and a husband. I'm married. I got 2 young daughters, but as well as in my, personal or my professional life as well. So I started out, right out of college, working for somebody else for free, trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do with this expensive ass piece of paper that really wasn't going to get me anywhere that I wanted to go. And I knew that I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted the freedom and flexibility of, being in control of my own fate, no limit on what I could make, from a ceiling perspective of income. And so kind of being in control on that driver's seat. I knew that I wanted to help people achieve their goals. I had kind of spent a good portion of my life. I was expelled in high school. I was arrested in college, and I was doing things that really were not aligned with who I said I was or wanted to become. So, I was really good at talking, a lot of audio, but my video and the results and the actions that I was taking in my life were just not congruent. And so that led me down an even deeper spiritual and personal development path that, helped me find kind of my rhythm in terms of professional career and path that I was going to stick on, which was real estate, checking all those boxes of being your own boss, having, financial ceiling on income, having the ability to help people achieve their goals. But then that fourth piece was, I wanted to be wealthy and rich. I was money motivated. So it allowed me to kind of check a lot of those boxes, which led me into the real estate space. And, back in 2010, when foreclosures were everywhere, I was working for a guy who was flipping all kinds of houses. And that kind of spider webbed off into meeting other mentors and people who led me down the path of building a real estate business. And then started buying single family rentals for myself, then into commercial assets, into hotel, into all different kinds of things. And, I just say my tree trunk, I chop wood in real estate investing, but I have many branches and ancillary buckets off of that pillar that, allow me to build wealth, generate income, and still achieve and check a lot of those boxes that I mentioned. And really, it's been a fun journey, man. And Austin knows a lot of where that journey started and where it led me to today. And I'm sure we'll be talking about some of that.
I'm super curious to hear more about your mom, actually, because, she's dragging you to these personal development events when you're 12 years old. That's like some pretty I would say out there exposure for most kids that age. Like what was her background that she was like, okay, yeah, these are a good idea. I'm into this. Like, cause I find there's maybe like two camps of people. One who are like, yeah, I'm super into the personal development and I understand the power and like, I'm going to take my life to the next level, and they're actively doing it. And so most of the successful people I've ever known, they kind of fall into that bucket. But then you get this other bucket of people who they're latching on to the personal development stuff because they're desperately trying to get out of where they're at currently. And so I'm curious, like, what was your mom's mindset there as she was bringing you to these events?
Yeah, a little bit of mixture of both. My mom is, she's actually in the office here with me today, and
very cool.
She works with me, and we've been working together for the last 4+ years, and she really kind of, I would say, not only created a spark of entrepreneurship within me, but fanned the flame and turned it more into a wildfire. And she's got a very interesting story. She is the only person in her family. She's Austrian, only person in her family that is in the US. And she was one of those people that was just an extremely hard worker and did everything on her own. She was kind of in the corporate world and climbed that ladder. And you mentioned something there of, wanting to get away from something, right? She wanted that freedom and that flexibility and all those things that I said. And personal development, she's a big reader. She's somebody who's always kind of carried the weight on, her shoulder, the weight of the world on her shoulders. And so, that was, I think, her outlet for opportunity and excitement and looking for a path that got her away from corporate America. And so as she was, going to a lot of these events and dragging me along with her and, buying some of these courses and these curriculums, I was going in behind her and, reading on these things and kind of planting some of those seeds in my own brain. And, we talk a lot about, the just in general, right? The success of the psychology of success is, you grow into the conversation and the environments and the people that you're around. And if you are hanging around, when I was hanging around, 9 dudes that were smoking weed and getting in fights and getting drunk every weekend, guess who the 10th person was doing those exact same things? That was me, right? Vice versa, when I started hanging around other people that were working on businesses and that were abundant thinkers and were taking action and holding themselves accountable and doing big shit in their lives and in their businesses, naturally that started to rub off on me physically as well as, right, emotionally and spiritually and mentally. So I'm very grateful that she started pulling me into those environments at a very young age, because one, it was inspirational to me, but it was also just through proximity and osmosis, being around those individuals, right? It really started to seep into my subconscious and allowed me to, I think, navigate and find spaces that some people don't get to find at early ages like that and or ever. And so just kind of highlighting the fact of how important it is to put yourself and intentionally seek out those relationships, those conversations, those environments, as weird and as, because I came from a very masculine world where I was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? That's, that's weird. That's not normal. Oh my, you're talking about this and that and right. And this, kind of societal narrative around a lot of that stuff. It was out there, right? It was an outlier type of personal development world. It wasn't your mainstream type of shit. And mind you, 10, 15, 20 years later, it is a lot more now. But even then, right, you start talking about some of the stuff that I'm sure we're going to get into today. And some people are very resistant, and it's not what, 99% of the planet is talking about or thinking about on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's the whole self-help genre has a really bad rap. Yep. And I think we've changed the narrative in recent years to more personal development, and it's becoming more accepted. But you use the word self-help and people go, oh, there must be something wrong with you. You're weird, broken, or something like that. But two things are, yeah, well, we all are, right? Like, it's all just a work in progress. So there's two things here. I want to first give your mom props because she sounds like a fantastic, awesome person that I would love to know.
She is the best.
And her story of coming from Austria and creating this awesome life reminds me of a book I just read, which was the memoir of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And like coming from Austria from nothing and building this incredible life. Like, there's something in the Austrian water. I'm just going to say that. So Austin, I got a question for you then. As Matt's talking about this, it's all about, the people that you surround yourself with. Because if you surround yourself with, 9 drug addicts, you're probably going to be the 10th. If you surround yourself with 9 millionaires, you're probably going to be the 10th. So where do we go to find these people? Because that's really challenging, especially in a day and age, I think, where, you know, COVID especially makes it hard to get out there and find people. But, you know, like, we're becoming increasingly disconnected while simultaneously being more connected through social media. And there's this disconnect of feeling like, I don't know about these deep relationships or how to make them or how to go find them, especially once you hit like a certain age and you're not in college anymore. You're not going out to the bars anymore. It's like finding and meeting new high achieving people. Good luck. Where do I go?
Well, I'll tell you the story of how I met Matt and tell you the conversation that changed my life. Slid into his DMs after hearing him speak at an event in Canada. I was like, man, this dude sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I like where his head's at. So long story short, I don't know if he even remembers this. We just met and I asked him a question about investing, like literally within like the first couple hours, and he just didn't respond. And it was the first time I talked to somebody on his level. And what I realized is he was teaching me a lesson that you haven't earned the right to get the free information yet, whether or not he knows he was teaching me that or not. That's what was going on. I know it was what was going on. Like, it was like too much of a detailed question, like somebody that he would coach would ask. And so I thought to myself, like, okay, this guy is teaching me that I need to provide value into his ecosystem. And then I belong in this, you know, leveled up society, so on. So long story short, I kept showing up in his community, kept providing value, always stepping up. And he was like, we have this event that we're going to do in California. I live in Texas. And I'm like, well, fuck, I'm getting on a plane. So he's like, listen, I'm very busy. I have 15 minutes. I have 15 minutes at Thursday at 8 o'clock. If you want to fly and you want to meet for 15 minutes, that's what I got. And so I just put the flight on my credit card and I booked it, and we met at the coffee shop. And 3 minutes in, he said something to me that has changed my life for the rest of my life. He looked me dead in the face. He said, you and I were no different. I just got started before you did. And it was in that moment that I realized, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. I realized that he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I've held on to that because I know how much he meant it. And it's like, I look back at that one moment and it's not everything, but it's everything to me. And I've held on to that because he's always believed that there was something greater for me. And that one meeting turned into 45 minutes, which turned into a friendship that I will forever have. And it's amazing when you get around these successful people and you put them up on a pedestal and you realize that they're just humans. But you have to understand, at the energy and the level that they move at, you have to provide value. You just can't take. And, you know, he taught me that. And so you do that by being humble. You do that by opening your fucking ears, and you do that by learning. And regardless of where you want to get, you have to, like Matt says, you have to earn the right. You have to earn the right to get to where you want to go. And I think with my energy and my intention, I think I've shown him over the years that I'm willing to grow, and that's what he respects in me.
I love that. That's a great answer, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I would add to, you know, I think you brought up a good point, right? In this proximity issue that a lot of people feel. And even though we might have more means of connection nowadays, there is more disconnection than ever. And a lot of people might feel like, you know, these people aren't around me, or how do I get access to them? And it's honestly much easier than people make it out to be. And Austin is a perfect example. I mean, you're looking at and listening to one of, in my opinion, best connectors I've ever met, in terms of he's everywhere and he's intentional about how he's, you know, staying connected to people and how he follows up with people and how he gets in front of people. And I call it the likability formula. And I think everybody has the ability to be more likable if they choose to be more intentional about it. And what I boil it down to is confidence. You have to be confident in who you are. Doesn't mean you need to know everything, Like, I'm not the smartest, fastest, strongest person, but I'm confident in I need to. Next piece of that is humility. Being humble enough to know that you don't know everything, that you're not going to be good at everything. That's totally okay. People love humility when somebody can, check their ego at the door every day and say, hey, you know what? I may not know this, or I may not have achieved this yet, but I can tell you this much. I will do X or Y or Z. And that ties into the confidence piece, right? Your ability to figure something out. The next piece of it is just value, like Austin said, just consistently making deposits in people's lives or in their business before you even ever think about asking for a withdrawal, right? Because once you have a surplus and a balance in the bank when it comes to deposits and value you've created for people, it makes it so much easier for someone like Austin to say, hey, I'm going to fly out. And is it okay if, we meet for 30 minutes at a coffee shop? If he hadn't done 90 days in a row of what he had done for me before that, I would have been like, no, sorry, man. I get people that ask me this all the time, right? I got stuff going on. And then you put that on the foundation of just pure hard work that makes you a pretty damn likable person. And we all know these people that you're around them and you're like, I just like that dude. I just like him. I like him. And some of the most successful people in the world that have been in my ecosystem that I'm like, man, I don't necessarily know if I've earned the right to, get some of their time or to be involved in this opportunity or get asked to get on this phone call. And when I boiled it down and I asked them like, why, it always came back to literally one common answer, which is, I just like you, Maddie, and I want to see you succeed. And so when you can think about how that applies to you and your own journey, and it'll be a little bit different for everybody, right? But if you can be confident in who you are, you can be humble in how you show up, you can add value in every situation and not just insert value, add genuine value where you can add value, and you can just work your ass off consistently every single day. You're going to find your way into opportunities, into conversations, into relationships, into rooms, into events that maybe you don't feel like you deserve to be there yet, but people are going to pull you up in a way that might accelerate your growth, accelerate your networking, accelerate your income opportunities because they like you.
There's some powerful things in there. There's so much to unpack, honestly. I want to start with the value because everybody talks about add value, add value, add value. Like it's almost become a little bit of a cliche at this point. I think the reason it's timeless wisdom. And I think where people go wrong with this is they add value with the expectation of someday receiving value instead of just giving the value without the expectation and trusting in, the karma or the universe or whatever you want to believe in, that it's going to come back around. And if you can give value from a genuine place of, hey, I just genuinely want to help you out. Like I don't want anything in return. If there's some way that we can work together in the future, awesome. That's cool. But I want to be able to help you. And I think if people can take that position from one of authenticity, you get so much further than the people who reach out and they're like, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time? Or will you mentor me? That's like that's the worst way to get a mentor 100%. Is to reach out and say, hey, will you mentor me? That's the worst way. The best way is to make yourself the type of person that somebody wants to mentor. Like work on yourself first and develop those attributes that they look at and they're like, I want to work with that guy. I want to see him succeed because I see him busting ass out there. I see him adding value to everybody, not just the people that are at the top of the ladder, but that dude's adding value to people at the bottom rung. He's like on his knees, like letting people up onto his shoulders, but like, here, get on my back. We'll get up there together. Right. Like people see that. And then you do that from that place of being both confident and humble. And I think that's a tricky dichotomy. A lot of people get that they err on one side or the other side a little bit too much. And they feel like they have to fake it till they make it, be too confident, or the humility comes off as fake humility. It's like, you can tell like, they're pretty high on their own supply still. So I think there's a lot there to unpack, man. I'm going to be processing that for a while.
Well, and I think you noted something though, that is important, right? In terms of, I call it the barrel of bunkies, and I don't know if you recall, right, that old school little plastic figurines that are the barrel of monkeys, and you hook them together. And I look at when you can be somebody with that type of mentality where you always got one hand that's looking up because you want to elevate and expand and grow yourself, right? But at the same time, you always got one hand down looking to pull somebody up with you. That's an amazing leadership quality that, I've pulled people up that are way further ahead of me now. And I've reached up to people that are below me. So it's one of those things where you're consistently looking for that. I remember when I was interviewing Robert Herjavec and from Shark Tank, and I asked him, like, hey, what is one piece of advice that you were given that has, one still applies today and has served you the greatest in your own career? And one of the things that he said that stuck out to me, and I think this applies in all areas of life and growth and relationship building and networking, is his dad on his deathbed told him that every single person on this planet has something to teach you, but it's nobody's job to help you find out what that is but your own. And so looking for opportunities and people and ways to add value and to serve and to give and to do it selflessly. But like, it's this awareness piece in life that so many people are kind of asleep at the wheel on, and almost this entitlement mentality of like, I'm owed this, or why aren't you giving me this? And instead of it being earned, right, or you just being that much more intentional about it, right? If you can find ways to create more awareness in your life around some of these things, then you are at least giving yourself the chance to be more intentional about the actions that you do or don't take. And there's just a lot of people that I feel like are just kind of sleepwalking through life, right? And I get it. We could rationalize and come up with any excuse that we want to that makes us feel better about it, or why it's not the way it should be or what we want it to be. But at the end of the day, right, if you want to get to where you want to go, you have to have both hands on the steering wheel at all times in your life and be very intentional about what roadmap you're following. And a lot of people are just not clear and aware when they're behind the driver's seat.
Yeah, you got to be, man, I love the analogy of the barrel of monkeys. I talk about it from the reverse aspect, which is the bucket of crabs, which is most people in your life, when you get a bunch of crabs into a bucket and like one starts crawling out and he starts getting out of the bucket, the other crabs are like reaching up and they're clawing. Everybody's just like a mad, frantic reach trying to pull it back in. And it's hard to get out of a bucket of crabs because all the other crabs are trying to pull you back down. And for a lot of people, that could be their social network, the people that they surrounded themselves. You mentioned it before, you came from this masculine environment where your friends, they were, drinking and doing these things that weren't conducive for, your long-term success. And, it's kind of like the bucket of crabs. Once you start saying, I'm not going to be that bucket. I'm not going to be a crab anymore. Like, I'm not going to play that game. Let's get out of this bucket entirely, play a barrel of monkeys game. Those crabs, they go, what are you doing? You're weird. Like, that's weird. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons a lot of people just, they stop, is because of that social how do you say that word?
Ostracization. Yeah.
That's a hard word, man. I really went for it. That's going to win a Scrabble game, guys. You just put that down.
That's 100 points right there.
Yep.
No, I agree though with that. And I want to touch on that point before we do, just to wrap up on kind of how do you find mentors? How do you get connected to people that maybe you don't feel like you've maybe earned the right yet? One question that one of my mentors shared with me, and David Osborne, and he's a very, very wealthy guy, very giving guy though too. But he doesn't fuck around with his time. And he's one of these people that he has shared with me, when people are constantly asking for your time, as you get higher up, right? People want some of that magic, and that's great. But you also have to be very selective with, who you give your time, because there's a lot of, tire kickers and assholes out there that just want to ask. And really they have no intention of either one, doing anything, or two, delivering any value back to you. And so he bakes in hurdles. And there will be times that you really want to connect with somebody, or you think this person can change your life. And you need to be aware that they may be baking in hurdles to see how you're going to respond. Like the first time I asked for some of his time, he said, you know what, I really would love to, connect with you, but I'm really busy right now. Circle back with me on this date at this time, and let me see what my calendar looks like. That's hurdle number one. 99% of people that you tell them to go do something at a later date and time will not even follow up on that date and time, and they'll just disappear. They wanted to take what was convenient for them and deliver no value, right? So be aware of the hurdles that people are baking into some of those opportunities, and step up and do what is necessary to earn that right. Going back to that word earn, he shared this question with me, and it has really changed the way I've been able to connect with people. And it was, instead of it being, hey, can you mentor me? Hey, can I pick your brain? Hey, can I take you out to lunch and have 20 minutes of your time? That's a very easy yes or no answer, right? Versus it being, hey, David, what does it take to earn the right to have 5 minutes of your time and take you out to lunch? Right now, he's going to go to work in his own brain and say, you know what? Here's what exactly would be valuable for me that would allow me to give you 10 or 20 or 30 minutes of my time. So now I'm very clear on, all right, I just got to go do that. Cool. I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to over deliver on that. And then it will make a little bit more sense for him to give up some of that value of his own time to me. So that simple question, instead of being a yes or a no versus it, hey, what does it take to earn the right to get some of your time? It's very different. It stands you out from the other 90 people that are asking to pick his brain every single day, right? And it's like, oh, that's a different question. And I like that question, because then, right, there might be something in my world that this person can help me with. And if they do, 100%, I want to give them some time and see how I can help them.
Yeah, man. Open-ended questions are powerful ways of getting people talking. And whether you're negotiating and you give somebody the binary option of yes or no, do you want this deal, this contract? It's an easy yes or no. Right. But if you structure it in a way of like, hey, what would it take? What would it look like on your end to make this deal work? And now they have to start thinking about that. They have to start projecting to the future. They can't just give you an off the cuff answer, you know? Yep. And it's the same thing with the mentoring. It's a really powerful technique. I want to tie back to this other thing that you mentioned before about baking in these hurdles, because that's exactly, it sounds like what you did with Austin. Hey, I have this event in San Diego or in California. You want 15 minutes of my time? Come get it. Right? It's here for you. 15 minutes, not very much time. And so Austin has to do that value equation in his mind of like, okay, is that worth the time? Is that worth the energy? You know? And most people, I would hazard a guess that 99.9% of people aren't going to follow up and take that step. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, because 80% of success in life is just showing up, and the other 20% is doing what you say you will. And so right there, you know, like and it might not be what you want. When you first reach out and you're like, hey, can I have an hour of your time? And you're like, I'll give you 15 minutes, and you got to fly across the country. Like, fuck. Yeah. That's a big hurdle. But the hurdles get bigger the higher up the person is that you're trying to get to. And so recognize that.
Yeah. And I would even go back to ask Austin, and then I'm not tooting my own horn by any means. I'm just saying, was that hurdle worthwhile? And what dividend has that paid out over time in your life? And what doors beyond the door have been opened by you taking that risk and investing in yourself and showing up?
I'll tell you what led to that. You don't even know this story that led to that. Okay. So I just got on Instagram. I really didn't even know what Instagram was. Jake Harris posted a picture of the Essex project. I said something about it. Lucas Piper was running GoBundance's marketing. And he said, hey, I know you're in Denver Heights. If you know any areas where they're selling a house, I'm buying. And I said, probably not, fuckhead. I'll buy it first. And he was like, I really like that answer. Do you want to meet for coffee? I like where your mind's at. So we met him, and he goes, hey, there's this group called M1. You need to join it. It's $600 a month. I had no money. I said, sounds great. Here's my credit card. We'll figure it out later. And he said something to me that changed my life. He said that I opened the door to a higher level of mastermind and personal development, and you kicked the motherfucker off the hinges. And so that was my foray into getting around people that had, 100 Airbnbs, 30 Airbnbs, that dream bigger. I finally found my crew, and I'm not giving them all the credit because I don't want golden locks to get all big headed, but but what I'm saying is that one meeting, there's no ROI on that, because I'll be getting the dividends from that one meeting for the rest of my life. But here's another, and I'll tell another story about Matt. Matt bought a hotel. At the time, I was very busy with my Airbnb company, and I've got a regular job. He was foraying into the Airbnb space, and he said, hey, man, I don't really know what I'm doing. Can you help me out? So I went in and spent probably 2 months, 3 months, helping their team build out their stuff, line of thing. They handle a lot of the stuff. I just kind of help with some stuff. Now, a lot of people would say, no, I don't want to do that. But the value proposition to being in guys like this world and stepping up to the plate and just understanding that the ROI or he's a man that sees everything. He sees it. It doesn't mean that he can act on everything. And so you have to make sure that when you're operating from a space, your expectations, what we recorded earlier, your expectations are that you're not looking for anything in return. And so I've never looked for anything in return besides just trying to help somebody out get farther along. And so that 15-minute meeting, if I were sitting 60, at 60 years old, I would say that you can't put a price tag on it because it'll forever change my life. So I don't know. And just so we're clear, this is not the first time I've done this. There's another story where Matt had a guy on, and I said, I'm going to meet that guy. And I was DMing him, and I said, hey, can I spend the day with you? And he said, sure, October. Canceled on me, canceled in November, canceled on January. And so on December 9th, I bought a plane ticket for $300, sent him a screenshot and said, I'll be there on January 6th. You're spending the day with me. And he said, are you out of your fucking mind? I said, 100%, let's go. And so I flew in and I met him at the gym, and I saw on his Instagram that he loved Cadillacs. So I rented a 1966 Cadillac DeVille, and I picked him up from his office in it. And he said, what the hell are you doing? And I said, because when I leave today, you're going to know that fucking Austin Linney was here. And he's told that story to 1 million people. And so my question to you is, with all the Instagram and all the YouTube, what about you is going to stand out to these people because they need 1 million a week?
It's interesting, Austin. Man, that story is pretty cool. I'm just waiting for you to show up now on my doorstep with a Cadillac, but winter, so we'll wait till spring. But the idea of giving value without expectation, and let's rewind to that time where Matt's like, hey, I got 15 minutes for you, fly out here and come get it. And you could look at that and say, well, why would I go there if I didn't expect some kind of value? The thing I would challenge you guys to think about at home is, when you go to take that next step, it's actually you building the discipline, building the muscle of putting yourself in the path of opportunity. Because at the end of the day, opportunity knocks pretty quietly, and it's more about showing up consistently and giving opportunity, giving luck or fortune or whatever you want to call it, giving it the opportunity to actually strike and hit you in that moment. And so, Austin, whether or not you had shown up and that conversation might have just been a complete dud. Matt might have been a dick. You don't know. Like, it could have gone any number of which ways, right? And you might have not gotten anything out of it, but you built the muscle. You built the discipline of being the type of guy who, when he sees an opportunity, no matter how small it is, he shows up. And eventually one of those opportunities ends up being a pretty big opportunity. Yep. You just never know which ones those are going to be ahead of time.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And I think too, the overall mindset of, we were talking about the psychology of success. There's not too many lightning bottle strikes in life that are going to be so massive, so successful, so big, like right away. I always tell people wealth or success in this, conversation it's created in the crock pot, not in the microwave. Many people in the world we live in now today, and again, I'm a millennial. I pace in front of the microwave. I want my shit fast. I like to move quickly. But at the end of the day, the best dishes are always made in the crock pot, where it takes hours upon hours of ingredients fusing together and being together and consistently working together over an extended period of time that produce the best result. And that's how making great money is, or building wealth is, or building an amazing business or an amazing brand or the best friendships or relationships. It takes time. It happens in the crock pot. So what you can do, right, is just to go, okay, well, if I'm just going to, bake this timeline out to a 50-year timeline, then I just got to do small, smart things every single day over an extended period of time, very consistently. And I can trust and bet in the fact that it's going to create a pretty damn good result. And that's where my mindset is with almost everything. Yes, of course, we all love those dopamine hits where you get high on something and you're fired up about it and it's great. But at the end of the day, I try not to get too high or too low, because my mentality is that everything I'm doing now is just throwing more ingredients into the crock pot. And eventually I'm going to get to serve myself up some nice dishes along the way and enjoy those things. But you don't want to get, and you don't want to romanticize about, I just see a lot of people online, on their Instagrams. It's all about the highlight reels. And what people don't really understand is, there were, you're seeing one chapter, but it took them years and years and rough draft after rough draft and failure after failure to produce that end result. And so not to romanticize about it, but to just fall in love with the process and the timeline behind that process, and just trust that if you do the right things consistently over an extended period of time, not only are you going to grow as a human being emotionally, spiritually, physically, and things will show up right on your P&L and your balance sheet and in your physical world. But at the end of the day, right, just enjoying that journey more instead of being so attached to the outcome. Because don't get me wrong, I like to move fast and I get excited about things as well. We're all human beings. But you don't want to get so caught up in those things that you get too high or too low, and then you lose the rhythm and the consistency of what is going to unlock all of those things over time.
Austin, true or false? Time is the most important variable of success.
100%.
You agree?
So think about it this way. This svelte young man that you see here today, who's down 70 pounds, there's a lot of frustration when you get sober and you're in the gym, especially as much as I work out. And, Omar, my coach, said an amazing thing to me. He said, you're sitting here and you're bitching and moaning about where you're not at some certain age. He goes, I'm going to ask you a question. How long were you an alcoholic? I said, 20 years. He said, how long have you been on the right path? I said, about 2 years. He goes, how does that pendulum sound to you? He goes, you got to give it a little time. He goes, I get it that you're 38. Time is the only thing that matters. And I've read Slight Edge, Power of Habit. I've studied in the psychology of success, the psychology of money. They're all preaching one thing: win the day, every day, over and over and over and over again. And then the social capital, the personal capital. But I think the bigger issue is, and I would ask both of you, this is an amazing thing. How do you stay motivated when the asset or the thing that you're searching sometimes can't be seen? Is that based on 100% belief in where you're headed?
It's just faith. I mean, for me, it just comes back to faith. Is you continue to move in a direction based on the deep-rooted faith that it will show up versus the tangible gratification that you can get by touching it. That's my own personal belief around it. And, I've just fallen in love with being a glutton for punishment and failure, because every time my biggest failures have, been presented in my own life, I look back on what has taught me the most about who I am at my core. Like, what do I stand for? What do I believe in? Why do I do what I do? All of those things I wouldn't have learned and gotten intimate and understanding of what those actually are and why they're important to me without all those failures. It's not all the wins that I've had in my life looking back in the rearview mirror. All the failures have taught me the greatest things about who I am and led to the biggest wins that I've had in my life. And so changing that narrative in your own head, I think is something that, is very important. Like now, fear, anytime it shows up for me, it's like, ooh, this is a call to adventure. I'm excited about it, versus it being something that prevents me from taking action. And every time I go through some of those challenging things over and over and over again, as you overcome them, I call it weaponized. Like that fear overcome turns into more confidence and makes me even more dangerous of a human being to know that whatever war or battle I'm walking into, whether it's in my head, whether it's a challenge at work, whether it's in my relationship, I'm 100% capable. As long as there's not a gun pointed in my face and there's a bullet that could go into my brain and absolutely kill me, I know that I'm going to become stronger because of this fear that is circulating around in my head. And therefore, I just consistently take little baby steps every day to keep chunking away at whatever those things are, and trusting in the fact that, again, I'm going to bet on myself to figure out whatever the challenge is. I'll find a solution to it.
Yeah, Austin, I've talked about this a lot, and I'm a firm believer in the +1 theory. I think it was Maslow who talks about this, and we're all familiar with the hierarchy of, our needs in terms of we need to have our physical needs, our emotional needs, our social needs, and then our self-actualization needs met. But what a lot of people aren't familiar with Maslow is this idea of the +1, or that which we can be, we must be. And it's this idea that inside we all know what we're capable of. We're aware that we're not up to the standard that we could be, or at least we sense when we're not moving towards that standard. If we're regressing or moving backwards, we feel that in the form of discontent. And so he visualized this in the way of, I'm standing on a road, imagining in front of you, there's a bunch of road signs off into the distance that say +1, +1, +1. And behind you, there's a bunch of signs that say -1, -1, -1. And each moment, each decision that you face is an opportunity to make either a +1 decision or a -1 decision. And recognize that when you make a -1 decision, that's actually costing you the opportunity of having moved forward. So you've actually, now fallen 2 steps behind what your ideal self could have become. And so every moment is an opportunity to make that +1 decision. And that's where I tend to focus. I don't get too far into the future, because the further I forecast into the future, the more likely I'm going to be setting expectations that are going to be in misalignment with ultimate reality. And so I try to avoid that as much as possible and just focus on as close to my nose as possible in terms of the gratification that I'm going to get. And this is tied into, I think, Angela Duckworth's idea of grit, which is, a fantastic book. I'd recommend it, guys, to check it out. It's all about the most important quality any of us can have in determining our long-term success is grit. And grit is defined as the ability to maintain motivation towards a long-term objective despite repeated failures. And so if you can stay motivated, if you can stay on the path towards that goal, you're eventually going to get there. But a lot of people, they lose their motivation and they fall off. And so when motivation falls off, it has to be replaced with something. And the only thing that's going to overcome it is discipline. And so it's all about building the muscle of discipline and saying, I'm the type of person who shows up and makes the +1 decision. And I know eventually it's going to get me to my desired destination. And at the end of the day, I can't remember his name. I think it's Jersey something. He says, easy decisions, hard life. Hard decisions, easy life. Mm-hmm. So own those hard decisions and your life is going to get easy.
Love that. Just masterclass.
So that's it, guys. I think we did it. I think we have, shared everything there is to share. No, not even close. There's so much on this topic. Honestly, it's so difficult. The other night I was on a podcast and the guy asked me an interesting question. It was the first time anybody's ever in real estate investing ever tied into my history as a former professional rock climber. And he asked me, like, what have you taken away from rock climbing that helped you benefit in business? And I was like, that's a really weird question, but let's see if I can find some throwaway here. And what I came to was, in rock climbing, we're intentionally seeking out stupid, arbitrary, and yet difficult challenges. We're trying to climb a mountain for no other reason than the mountain's there, right? Like with that cliff, I want to climb it because it's there. It's hard. Yes, I could drive up the backside and get to the top of the mountain just as easily, but I'm going to do it the hard way. And I would say, if you can make a discipline of doing and seeking out the hard thing in your life consistently, and you do that long enough, like Maddie's pointing out here, you do it on a long enough time frame, you can't help but succeed.
That's brilliant.
Austin, did you just drop the mic?
I did, because you just dropped the mic on that.
A metaphorical mic, an invisible mic.
Yeah.
We got to get out of here. I'm starting to get weird. All right. Matt, we thank you so much, my brother.
It's always great hanging with you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us here at the Brain Dump. Now, before you go, it's important to solidify what you've learned here today by taking action. If all you do is listen, then you're only going to retain a small amount of the information you consumed here today. So take a quick moment to really lock in any key insights, tidbits, or pieces of wisdom that you want to carry with you into the future. You can do this by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review with your top 3 takeaways from this episode. If you've already left a review, first, thank you so much. Second, it's time to start a brain dump journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a slip of paper will do where you can record a couple quick thoughts from each episode. Science shows this is one of the best ways to ensure long-term retention of new information. And finally, if you've got a brother, a sister, a coworker, or a best friend that you think would benefit from this episode, do them and us a favor and share with them this episode. Your support, as always, means the world to us.